Yo! Welcome back to One More Mana. My name's Derek, and today we're getting into another top 10 list. And it's just because there's so much goodness right now between Core Set 21 and Jumpstart that there's just so many cards I love, and I really want to talk about them. I won't have time to do deck techs or deck inclusions for all these cards, so I need somewhere to vent about how much I love these cards, so this is the perfect place to do that. And on top of that, I kind of just got completely confused between what's coming out in Jumpstart and what's coming out in Core Set 21. They're kind of just a jumbled mess to me as far as trying to sort them out, so I'm gonna just group them together, keep myself less confused, because I'm telling you, if I did a Core Set 21 top 10 list, I would accidentally end up including Jumpstart cards. It's just, they're all bunched together. So we're just gonna bunch them together for this top 10 list and go over the 10 cards I'm most excited about. Most of these cards I have already slotted into decks because I'm not excited about them. The cards in this set have been awesome, outside of one that I'll talk about in a minute that is gonna make my honorable or dishonorable mentions for the worst card ever printed. We'll get into that in a second. But before we do, a lot of these cards are awesome. A lot of these cards are beautiful because you know how much I love the art. If you want any of these cards, head on over to TCG Player. TCG Player is absolutely amazing. Anything you need, you can find on there. Any art version, foil version, alternate version. Some of these cards now got like, Teferi's got like 30 different versions now. I don't know, I can't tell the difference between most of them, but if you can, head on over to TCG Player and pick your favorite one. They're phenomenal. Anything you get with that link down below, our affiliate link with TCG Player, will help support the channel and help us get out more and better content. We really, really do appreciate the help. Now, getting into that dishonorable mention before I jump into the top 10, and this card is just, the new Teferi is, maybe in other formats this is going to be a fun card, and I'm sure that was the thought process behind making it, but in Commander, it just looks terrible. It looks like the most miserable card in the world to play against. I'm sure it's going to be super powerful, and I'm sure it can warp games, and I'm sure it's going to win plenty of people games out there, but it just seems like one of the most dreadful. It warps the game around it. It can lead to extra turns, which are always boring, and it's just not a fun card. It looks absolutely miserable, so my dishonorable mentions of cards I cannot stand from Core Set 21 and Jumpstart, it's just one card on it. It's just Teferi. That's the type of card where if someone just has it in their deck list, I will attack them first, second, third, and fourth, because I don't want that played on the table. That card looks, it's just so many. I'm getting anxiety just thinking about seeing that across the table from me. So yeah, not super excited about that. But fortunately, there is so much just amazingness in these two sets that it more than makes up for it. So jumping in at number 10, we have Fiery Emancipation. This card, I already have done a deck centered around just the flavor and awesomeness of this card, and showing that it comes in at number 10 just shows how much I love the rest of the cards in these sets. Fiery Emancipation is awesome. You can use it in big stompy decks, you can use it in burn decks, you can just throw it in whatever deck you want because it's a not one-sided, but yeah, sort of one-sided. You're the only one that benefits. It's an awesome card, it's a super fun card, and it's big and splashy and everything I love about Commander. It's just, it's one of those cards, it's never going to make a deck worse with it being in there. It's just an awesome, flavorful, fun card. Coming in at number 9 is a super broken card that I had to read multiple times before I realized just how disgustingly awesome it was, and that is Garrix Uprising. When I first read it, I figured it was just another elemental bond effect, because my eyes just jumped to that last line of text, and then I realized, oh wait, it gives your creatures trample, and oh wait, when it enters you can draw a card too. This is just, in many decks, for example, my Titania deck, Elemental Bond is one of the all-stars of that deck. That is one of the cards that really gets that engine going and allows me just to explode and win. The fact that I can now have a card that does that in addition to drawing on entering and giving trample on an uncommon, this might be the card that really makes the biggest difference in my decks personally, just because my Titania deck is one of my stronger decks, and this can kind of take it to the next level because it gives that trample with that card draw engine. It's ridiculous. This is, I guess, the definition of power creep, when you take something like an Elemental Bond and just make a strictly better version of it. Obviously, the power is slightly different, but come on, if you're going big stompy, 3-4 power, really doesn't make a difference there. Has awesome alternate art. It is just a phenomenal card. Now, coming in at number 8 is a really powerful card, and it's a card that I'm not sure how I'm going to use it just yet, but I know I want to use it, and it's Sublime Epiphany. This card seems extremely broken in Commander. Anytime you get this many options, it can do all of them, and the options are as diverse as it is. It's just asking to be broken. There are so many things you can do. It's one of those cards that, one of the few cards you can have in hand. It almost reminds me, in a weird way, of a Summary Dismissal. Summary Dismissal is a card that exiles everything on the stack, so it essentially can get around triggered abilities, activated abilities, cast, anything. And this card gives you that same feeling, with the difference being you also get to copy stuff or draw cards. It is ridiculous the number of things this card does for you, And I really love, in Commander, I am very heavily skewed toward counter spells like this. I don't like the Pact of Negations, Force of Wills, those type of counter spells, because it kind of just leads to feel bads. I don't like playing counter spells in general. I just don't find them fun to play. But I really love big splashy ones where you have options. Like Mystic Confluence is a card I love because you can counter something, or you can just draw cards or bounce something if you don't feel like countering anything. And this card gives you that same flexibility. And it's big and splashy. It's 6 mana. You have to hold the whole 6 mana up, so you're earning a lot of the effect it's getting. I love counter spells like this, where it is fair. You do need to have a lot of mana to use it, but more importantly, in casual decks, a card like this, which is thankfully for now cheap, hopefully it stays that way, you can get a really, really big swing of an effect on right now I think it's like a $2 card, and I love cards like this, and I'm hoping it stays at that price point because I want to put this in a lot of decks. Coming in at number 7, this is a card, I just picture this creeping around in the art of Fiery Emancipation, and that is Terror of the Peaks. This is just another massive splashy red spell that is just a Warstorm Surge basically on a creature. The difference being this creature is the one that deals the damage, not the creature ETB. Yeah, you saw me looking down, I had to double check that. Yes, it is Terror of the Peaks that's dealing the damage, which is really interesting because you can give Terror of the Peaks Infect, you can do some creative stuff like that if you really wanted to be mean and go off like that. I just love a card like this in one of my favorite decks is my Xenagos deck, and a card like this in Xenagos is phenomenal because Warstorm Surge is great in that deck, but it's also kind of a do-nothing enchantment. With this, you just play it out. All of a sudden, you have a 10-power flyer with Xenagos, and you have the Warstorm Surge effect there as well. With creature-heavy decks, which this seems like it would want to be in, having your enchantment effects on creatures can be just strictly better sometimes because your deck cares about creatures. So I'm so excited to get this effect on a creature. Not to mention, it's kind of pseudo-protection. It is just, I love it, love it. Super stompy, and it's gonna be smacking people in the face. Now coming in at number 6 is another card going into my Xenagos deck. That deck's getting a lot of goodies in this go around with these sets, and that is Brash Contr. It is basically just a strictly better stuffy doll. It has Indestructible. Whenever anything deals a damage, you get to deal damage to an opponent. And kind of the best thing about this is this fight effect that's mixed into the card. I love it so much as a blocker. You just leave that back, nobody wants to attack you. But what's great in a deck like Xenagos is it gives you really non-combat damage. So it has that double effect. You can swing out at people and keep this massive scary blocker up, or you can activate it, have one of your 30-power creatures fight it, and just smack somebody in the face. It's a really great utility creature in any type of deck that really wants to be aggressive, because anytime you can have offense and defense on the same thing, and it's pretty, obviously it doesn't have reach, so you're still susceptible to flyers, but it's really good defense. It's crazy how much in Commander just having an indestructible blocker will make people not want to attack you, let alone being able to throw the damage back at their face. It's super awesome. I wanted so bad to force this into my Goblin deck. It really didn't have as much of a home there, but I knew I had to find a home for it just because, yeah, I was always somebody who wanted to play Stuffy Doll, and this is just, yeah, a better version, and it's a Goblin. It's super awesome. Now, speaking of Goblins, coming in at number 5 is Muxus Goblin Grandee. This card is absolutely amazing. It's probably the highest CMC I can think of off the top of my head on a Goblin. 6 CMC, which is crazy to think about, but it more than earns it with the effect. When it ETBs, you reveal those top 6 cards and put all Goblins 5 CMC or less, which just means all Goblins, just straight into play. This is ridiculous. It's really just a better version of a Goblin Ringleader. Obviously, the mana cost is a little different there, but its effect is just a better Ringleader. Not to mention, it gets buffed based on Goblins, just with a little sugar on top, just in case that ridiculous effect of just throwing Goblins into play wasn't enough. This card goes amazing with obviously something like a Goblin Recruiter. So, Goblin Recruiter, you go ahead, throw in, stack your deck with 6 Goblins, play this, all of a sudden, bam, 6 Goblins into play. And with some of the toys Goblins have gotten lately, you can just win off of that, which anytime your commander can say, you know, play it and win, it's kind of a good thing. I see this as more of a card in the 99 for me personally in a Goblin deck, because mono red, ramping is hard in mono red. You want your commander, you know, if it ETBs and wins, that's great, but it just feels very, very Glass Cannon. I love Krenko. We'll talk more about Krenko in a little bit. One of my favorite decks, and that's Glass Cannon enough. I feel like it's going to have a better home in the 99, but either way, it's going straight. As literally the second it becomes available for pre-order, it's going in my cart, and it will be sleeved up into Krenko immediately because this card is ridiculous. And I also love having, just to rant a little bit more about it, I love having more high-end curve cards in a Goblin deck. So much of Goblin decks are just 1, 2, 3 drops. And sometimes when you get to the late game, those cards don't have the same effect. So having a Goblin that can have this huge of an impact late game really is something that I feel like my Goblin deck lacked, and I'm just really happy to get it on a card this awesome. Now, coming in at number 4 is a card that actually has kind of pushed me towards building a new deck. You can probably see it behind me, that Guided by Nature Precon. It's the 2014 Elves Precon recently got, and that's the deck I've been tweaking, working on. We'll probably be getting a deck tech at some point for sure. And yeah, number 4 is Allosaurus Shepherd. This thing is ridiculous. It is just so broken for a 1-drop. It reminds me a lot of Deathrite Shaman, where it's just like, it's a 1-drop and it's doing what for you? Like, how many lines of text are there? It's gonna do everything for you. I always like to say it's gonna cook you breakfast, cook you lunch, it's gonna tuck you into bed, it's gonna do whatever you want with a card like this. Because for 1 mana 1/1, but all of a sudden, wait, it can't be countered. None of your green spells can be countered. And then on top of that, you can pump 6 mana into it and turn all your elves into 5/5 dinosaurs. This is just, it's not green creatures. Green spells can't be countered. That is a huge problem. I love stompy decks. I really, really like stompy decks. And so many times when I'm playing against a blue player, I'm trying to go get my Crater Hoof, or I'm trying to get my End-Raze Forerunners, or I'm trying to play my Overwhelming Stampede, or anything like that. And the blue player's just like, nope. And in some of those decks, if you don't kill everybody in that moment, you're just out of luck. You end up with a bunch of tiny creatures, and you gotta wait until that next pump effect comes in. That can be really kind of game losing for you. And a card like this for a 1-drop, it's great early game. You know what? Get it out early game. It gets the Elf engine going, which is great. But even late game, I love having 1-drops that have these big impacts. Late game, this is phenomenal because you can just hold it until the turn you want to go off. Cast it can't be countered. If someone doesn't have removal immediately, all of a sudden your spells are safe to cast. Card is ridiculous. But my favorite thing about it is also its casual use, because I'm sure this is going to see play in very, very, tuned up elf decks. But what I love about it is that pump effect, turning all your elves into dinosaurs. I personally don't run Crater Hoof in my elf deck, and I don't plan on it just because I have enough green decks that use Crater Hoof as a win comp. I've probably won more games with Crater Hoof than any other card in existence, so I've had enough of that. And I wanted to find other stompy win cons. I mentioned End-Raze, Forerunners, you know how much I love Triumph of the Hordes, so many different things. But having this as an option is so cool to me, because it doesn't even take, it's one of your elves, it doesn't even take up kind of a pump extra slot, it's just a 1-drop elf. I love it. I want to see more cards like this that kind of give casual decks win cons and give you options outside of the stereotypical like Crater Hoof smash type deal. That's why I loved End-Raze Forerunners. I put that index because it is such an awesome alternative. This is a little bit power crept and a little bit insanely strong, but I also love its effect to work as a team pump. For 6 mana, you can probably get better effects, but having it on one of your elves and just picturing elf dinosaurs, yeah, that by itself, I really hope we get an elf dinosaur token. I know it doesn't say token, but Wizards, I want an elf dinosaur token. That's the only thing that makes this card any better. Now, coming in at number 3, we actually have lands, just regular little basic lands. And you know why? Because those Jumpstart lands are ridiculous. The best part about the lands in these two sets, the M21 alternate art lands could have just as well been in this slot and probably would have been. But then I saw those Jumpstart lands that are themed to the legendary creatures. I can't even pick one. Every one of those just so on flavor. You can get elf lands, you can get Phyrexian lands, and you know how much I love Phyrexian. I really hope those aren't expensive because I want those in every deck. I don't even care if it's not playing swamps. I want Phyrexian swamps. I'm gonna proxy my forest, I don't play plains, I don't play white. I'm gonna proxy my islands, I'm gonna proxy my forest, everything with those Phyrexian swamps, and I'm gonna just write on the sleeve what it is because those are beautiful. Yeah, just all of them though, not just Phyrexian, not because I'm a Phyrexian nut. Everything about them is just great. Every single one of those lands just makes me want to build a deck with that flavor, which I think is the best thing you can say about a Magic card, especially a basic land. I'm really hoping this is a trend going forward because it's probably my favorite new thing about the set is seeing something like that. Now at number 2 is a card that's going to allow me to, on a more of a budget, build some decks I've kind of been putting on the back burner for a while. And that is Branching Evolution. Branching Evolution is basically for 3 mana, you get the doubling +1 counter portion of Doubling Season. So it's obviously not as good. It doesn't work with Planeswalkers. It doesn't work with tokens, all that type of stuff. But I love +1 counter decks. Again, big stompy. +1 counter decks are a lot of fun, and one of the hardest things was to get that doubling of the +1 counter effects. The cards were so expensive to run, and now in a 3 mana enchantment that hopefully is a little bit more budget because it's so specific to +1 counters, this is phenomenal. It's going to bring that curve down a little bit. You don't need a 5-drop, and it's also, for whatever reason, Doubling Season has this, whatever reason, it's ridiculously powerful, that's the reason, but it has this reputation If it hits, you have to destroy it. Never, that's also good advice. Never let a doubling season stick around, ever. This is a newer card. I'm wondering because it's just +1 counters, it won't, ult the Planeswalker right away. Maybe it's less of a threat. I don't know, but just being able to build those types of decks, hopefully crossing fingers on more of a budget with the card like this really excites me. And I'm hoping we see more of these type of things that are kind of, slightly worse budget versions of cards. But one, it's lower to the ground, and if it's more affordable and it can let people build more decks like that, it's doing what I think new cards should do. It's not breaking anything new, but it's allowing players to play other strategies that they might not have access to, whether it's because of budget or because other cards don't exist. And this does a perfect job of that. All right, now the number 1 card. It's zero surprise to me. I didn't have to think at all. Now the rest of the list was tough. Trying to order number 10 through 2 was a lot of work. I couldn't figure out where I wanted each card. I loved so many of these cards so much, but number 1 was a no-brainer at all for me. And the number 1 card I have already ordered. I've ordered 2 copies. I only have a spot for 1, but I ordered 2 because I have a problem. And that is Conspicuous Snoop. Conspicuous Snoop is just absolute insanity for me because it's just an Oracle of Moldiah for goblins, essentially. Because you flip that top card, you can play goblins off the top, and it gets the activated abilities. So many of the combos, or not even just combos, but the synergies within my Krenko deck rely upon activated abilities from goblins. If you have a Skirt Prospector on top of there, or if you have something like a Goblin Trashmaster, there's so many really powerful activated abilities on these goblins that make the deck go. And the fact that Snoop can be any one of these for 2 mana, not mentioning the fact that you can play them off the top. I said it once, I need to re-emphasize that. Play them off the top. So it's pseudo card draw for your goblin deck, especially with how low CMC most goblins are. With Snoop, you can get into a situation where you can get 1, 2, maybe even 3 if you're lucky goblins off the top and really lead to an explosive turn, or just leave the goblin there because it might be a Kiki Jiki and you just want to combo off and win. I'm not typically a huge fan of combo, but I love goblins and goblins combos, so I'm gonna be okay with it because, yeah, I make the decisions with what I'm okay with, and for whatever reason, I'm okay with these combos. And I love Conspicuous Snoop. And on top of all of that, it has this is the first card that's ever gotten me interested in the modern format. I know this video is about Commander, and these are my top 10 favorite Commander cards. But watching the combo goblin deck that is I think it's called, I don't know who to give credit for it. Quote whoever actually made this up. I've heard somebody call it Sneaky Jiki, and that is just the greatest name ever. And I love that deck. It's gotten me interested in Modern for the first time ever. And that's saying a lot for any card to do that. And anytime a card can be an all-star in my probably top 2 favorite Commander deck ever, and get me interested in a format that I couldn't have cared less about, yeah, that card is an all-star to me. And that's why it is my number 1 card in either of these sets. So that's going to do it for this week's video. I really hope y'all enjoyed it. I have I found myself just so many decks half put together because there's so many cards in these 2 sets I was so excited about. And the way spoiler season seems to work now is spoilers around the corner at all moments. So I'm probably not going to have time to get to all these decks that I'm putting together. So I really wanted a place to be able to talk about these cards that genuinely have me so excited. Like all 10 of these cards are cards that I have been thinking about probably more than I should, and very excited to get in the deck. So it was great to kind of be able to take a deeper dive, figure out where I'm going to use them, and get a chance to talk about it, because these sets really have gotten me excited for more single cards than any sets have in a while. Let me know what y'all think. Are you excited about Jumpstart and M21? Because outside of Teferi, I am so excited. Like I said, so many deck techs to come, so much coming, all just so much just amazing spice coming out of these sets. But until then, I will see y'all next time.